So we're really on borrowed time. It's 46 today, and it's supposed to get into the 20s, and it's not going to get much better. The highs going forward are going to be pretty much in the 40s. So here's my 48 Cub, and those of you who have been watching for a while, you know I've got some leaks in it. I've fixed the starter problem, but today I'm going to change out the fuel bowl. So I'm going to bring this down in front of the garage, and we'll get that fuel bowl changed out and see if that fixes the problem. So stick around. If you haven't already, please take a moment and subscribe to the channel. I'll bring the Cub down and we'll get to work on it. So one of the great things about Farmall Cubs is if they're tuned up properly, it's nothing to start them with the crank. It's like literally 2 revolutions of the hand crank and it's running. So when a lot of people, you know, they let the batteries die and they don't even worry about it anymore. They just start right up. So Cubs are really a cool tractor. They were built in the late 1940s. They were IH's answer, which had come out in the 30s. And International Harvester was trying to get rid of the last bastion of the small farmers who were farming with horses or mules or oxen. Now understand that when a farmer, let's say he grows cash crops like grain, cotton, they farm with animals, so they have to devote a certain amount of their land, energy, and real estate just to feed the animals. When the tractor came out, at the end of the day, you park it, you don't have to feed it. So they made them very simple to work on. International gave you a set of tools with them. It was a funky wrench that had about 4 different, it was curved and had about 4 different wrench sizes on it. So with that, a flathead screwdriver and a hammer, you could fix this tractor. You could do everything you wanted to do. The float leaks on the carburetor. And there's a couple of swallows left in here. There should be enough to get me down there. And I also had to fix the choke lever on the other side, so hopefully this will start right up. I've changed out the starter. The battery's been shined up and charged. You really don't need much choke with a Cub. You don't need much choke with a carburetor that leaks, because it had plenty of fuel in it anyway, so I didn't even really hit the choke. This Cub smokes. I have no intention of rebuilding the motor on it. It runs fine. It really doesn't use any oil, even though it smokes. So it's not worth the cost to me to rebuild the motor. It's still got enough power to do what I want to do. I can put it in 3rd gear and haul it up the road. It'll run the mower. So it's really not worth a rebuild. A rebuild, I could buy 2 Cubs. You could buy Cubs around here all day long for $1,500 with a couple attachments, so it's not even worth it. This Cub has totally been reconditioned in every aspect except for the motor. The clutch was done, brakes, electrical, magneto. You know, I've done work on the front end. I've put new tires on it. It's just not even worth selling it because you won't get anything for it. So, you know, nobody wants to buy a Cub that smokes. They don't want to spend much money on it. So everything else is kind of moot at this point. But anyway, we're going to take the fuel bowl out and put a new fuel bowl in and see if that solves the problem. For this job, we're going to need a wrench that's going to fit your fuel line. Alright, a few things we're going to need. This carburetor here, the fuel line is an 11/16. Yours may be different, but that's what mine is. You're going to need some kind of drain pan to catch the fuel, if any's left in there. And I did shut the drain off, but I'm going to take this fuel line off here. You can see that even with the line shut off, I've got a drip. So it just keeps dripping. Alright, so before we take this off from the bowl up there, we're going to just drain the tank. So it's always a good idea to do this when you're pretty much empty. Now, depending upon your application, you may have a swivel right here, and the purpose of that swivel is so you can tighten each end of this hose in without getting a kink in it, because if you didn't have a swivel, you'd end up getting twists all through it. So this one has a swivel, and I've got it started, so I'm just going to go ahead and take that hose off now. Hopefully that gives you a decent view of it. So this hose is an aftermarket hose, and I like this better than the original metal one because it gives you a lot more flexibility. So go ahead and take that right off. This will fit in this adapter right here. So make sure you put pipe dope on your connector here and this one here, so you've got a bunch of fittings, and you've got a swivel on this end. That'll keep you from having to struggle too much with it. And it should thread right in without too much effort. You don't have to put the hose on. If you've got a metal fuel line, then you're out of luck. You'll have to stick your hands up in there and try to make it work. I usually end up taking the metal fuel lines off because they're a pain. I don't put inline filters on my fuel lines. They tend to give you a vacuum lock, and then when you don't get enough fuel flow, you can put a giant, I've seen people put the giant fuel filters on. If you can find a place to stick it in there. You've got a fuel bowl here that catches a lot of the junk, and then right in the inlet of that carburetor there's another screen that we'll take off here in a second, and I'll show you that. So we're going to tighten this up as much as we can, and hopefully the hose comes out the right side. If not, then you have to adjust it to get it where you need it. Even if the hose goes towards the back, you still should be fine. You just don't really want it going the other side of the tractor. And so I've got plenty of hose still. I like to take mine and go up underneath here. It just seems to look nicer. But you want to be careful of your rock shaft too, so I can't this time because the way the fuel bowl is, so I have to go over the top in order to clear the rock shaft. And we'll take this off right here. I'm just going to make sure my fuel is shut off again. Kind of like it here actually because I can reach it from both sides. Alright, take this inlet off the carburetor, and it must be 9/16. It's so much easier with a flexible hose than the steel hoses because they just never seem to go the way you want them. And we'll inspect for leaks. So there's nothing leaking around the bowl. I'm going to go ahead and turn the fuel on. Alright, so you can see the fuel bowl right there is full. I don't have anything leaking out of my fittings here. So we'll put the cap on and see what happens. This tractor will drive over you. Now I'm just going to let it run for a couple minutes. Make sure we don't have any leaks. Make sure we don't run out of fuel. So that's all I have for today. I appreciate you watching, and that's how you change out your fuel bowl in a Farmall Cub, or in actually anything that has a fuel bowl. It's all pretty much the same. If you haven't already, please take a moment and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you watching. Thanks, and I hope you have a great day.